life is a pilgrimage already, but sometimes we need to go on a physical pilgrimage. I needed to come to terms again with who am I and who is God. It's the two most profound questions a person can ask. And I found I couldn't do that in my normal everyday humdrum,
What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Sunday School. I'm Ryan, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, the host of the Myth Pilgrim podcast that many of you might have listened to, founder of Shepherd's Heart, Lawrence. Welcome to the show.
Hi Ryan. Hi everyone watching.
Thank you for taking the time. We've been trying to tee this up for a little bit. Maybe give yourself a little bit of introduction. So I touched on a couple of things that you've been doing lately, but maybe for people that might not be super familiar with who you are, I'm sure people would have seen you around the parish if they're listening from St. Ben's, but maybe give yourself a bit of an intro to the audience.
Cool. Well, I am, my name's Lawrence. I am a very passionate Catholic who has really discovered how transformative the gospel is in my own life, but also a large part of my journey in the last 7 or 8 years here at St. Ben's is as a brother. So being able to journey with people at different stages of their own faith journey, whether it's initial formation, kind of exploring the faith in RCIA and Alpha, all the way to Catholics who have been journeying for 10, 20, 30 years in spiritual direction. That's one of my roles here as a spiritual director. And as you were hinting at earlier, I'm also the host and creator of a podcast, which is very life-giving, first of all, selfishly for myself. The Myth Pilgrim is a podcast where I get to tease out and draw out how popular myths and fairy tales can nourish the Catholic life. Because that's what's happened in my own life. I've had profound conversion experiences. In fact, a lot of my own spirituality, my first encounter with God came through reading these classical stories and realizing something stirring in my soul. And part of what I'm doing now is just creating episodes where I can allow other people to share in that same experience. Really encounter God and the truth of the gospel spelled out in these great stories. So that's something of what I do now quite regularly, and it's very life-giving for me and hopefully my listeners. Yeah, no,
Christina's a big fan of the Myth Pilgrim.
I'm a fan of Christina.
Every time she listens to something really great, she'll share it with me. And I think I wanted to start this episode maybe with kind of your maybe top 3 episodes of the Myth Pilgrim, because she's shared with people that she knows that aren't even Catholic, and they found it very enriching and stuff. So I'm interested to hear from the host himself maybe what the kind of the top 3 have been for you.
I have been asked that before, and I always struggle, genuinely, because maybe the niggler in me, I never release an episode I don't like or I'm not proud of. Look, but having said that, maybe significant episodes for me are often the ones that come from a place of pain or difficulty where I've encountered something of God's love and his promises in it. So one that stands out is, don't remember what number it is, but it was about looking at Batman and death, the theme of death and resurrection in the Batman in the Christopher Nolan's trilogy. I know that came from a very deep place because as I was writing it, I felt like I was converting myself as I was writing it and pondering the mysteries of being able to experience God in the wilderness, in the darkness of night, when hope seemed, kind of dwindled away. And I know from feedback from listeners, that's also touched a lot of listeners, even those who aren't necessarily Batman fans or seen Nolan's films. So that would certainly be one. I'm always surprised by Actually, I do have one, but put that aside for now. I'm always surprised by how my original stories are received. I often think, well, no one's going to listen to this episode because it's not like it's not like Lion King or Cinderella. It's just Lawrence and the Desert Heart, But often my own personal stories that I venture to share are well received, and I get a lot of feedback. Maybe people know that I wrote them, so they're like feedback more. But it's more that the story that I wrote from my own heart has spoken to them as well. And I think that's what really means a lot to me. So it's a category of favourite episodes. But I felt a recent one that I really enjoyed writing and felt was really life-giving was, it was called Inside Out. 2 about befriending your difficult emotions. And why that meant a lot to me was I'm now training as a life coach to complement my work in spiritual direction. And what I found so helpful was being able to synthesize some of the frameworks and modalities we learn in the life coaching space, often which is informed by psychology, psychological insight, with Christian spirituality, deep Catholic spirituality. And that episode was able to bring together, I guess, theology, spirituality, but also what I learned from psychology in life coaching. And it's a very practical episode as well, which I always try and make my episodes to be practical. And the amount of, I guess, positive feedback, and also how it actually has helped people in befriending their difficult emotions, stuff they've been carrying for yonks. So it's very meaningful for me. And when I hear that,
no, that's awesome. And is that a difficult thing to do? And by the way, today's episode actually talking about pilgrimages, which is has come up in a Q&A that we do with Father Justin. So I want to move into that space shortly. But I'm also interested for creators in this space, like yourself, the challenges about sharing, like the stuff that you've written, your stories, really personal things about yourself on on the internet. I want to just touch on that a little bit, because I find myself now doing this. Sometimes you catch yourself wondering how much to share, what to say, whether it's one person that listens or a million people that listen. Like, it feels really vulnerable having all these cameras on you, or sharing, yourself with the world like that. For you, what has that process been like now, having done, myriad of episodes?
I think I've grown into it. I would say I started 4 or 5 years ago during lockdowns, started the Myth Pilgrim. And as I listened back on some of those earlier episodes, it was very more objective, like teachery. I like those episodes. I thought I wouldn't have released them, but it's more, have you thought about it this way? And this is what this theologian says. And this is, whereas I'm finding as I go along, I'm more and more confident. Not only have I found my own voice, but trusting that my own journey, interweaving my testimony into the episodes. Like, even recently there's one on shame and K-pop demon hunters, healing from shame. I'm like, that's been my journey so much, and be able to share snippets of it with appropriate vulnerability.
Yes.
But not so general that, it's just abstract. I've had to grow into that. And it's also this thing, maybe it's just wisdom as you grow older, that you just stop worrying as much what people think, and kind of trust that your own story is so unique and will bless the world. And that's the most powerful story I can share on the Myth Pilgrim, is my own. But I still doubt. I have nights, like I say, I'm a niggler. I'll sometimes, maybe once every 20 episodes, I'll write it, or send it to release at 4 a.m. the next morning, which is when they're published. And then at 12 a.m. I'll be like, panic. And then I'll jump on the laptop with, kind of like, eyes, I've got to fix that, I've got to re-record that line. Shouldn't have shared that, or overshare. I still do that. And so I haven't got it right yet, but I think I'm growing in confidence.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, like I mentioned, and first, to give you flowers, I think, is important as well. I think a big reason why I started Sunday schools, I saw people like yourself talking about their faith so openly, and I feel that, like, this idea, Father Justin talked about it a lot, evangelization for, like, the contemporary age, and being bold and brave enough to talk about your faith in kind of like the public square, right, of the internet. So a big reason and big inspiration that took for Sunday school was because of your podcast.
I didn't know that, Ryan.
So I think this is firstly a thank you for kind of like stepping into that space so that others like me can move in with you, and I think that's important to say. But also a big reason why I want to have you on is because I know that you recently did the Camino, and like I hinted at earlier, a Q&A that we did with Justin, someone asked the question around, like, should Christians go on pilgrimage? And then we kind of like touched on it lightly. But that question is not necessarily for you to answer, although you could touch on that. But I thought having you on for the first time would be a good opportunity to kind of cover your pilgrimage experience, both, physical, like you went somewhere and it was far away and it's like hard work on the Camino. But also, I'm assuming spiritual. It's one of the, like, those great spiritual pilgrimages that people talk about going on. Yeah. And so, following on kind of from that question, we actually got a lot of interest online. People sharing their own pilgrimage experiences. Asking more. And I thought just that, like, the timeliness of it was kind of like interesting for me to then have you on and talk about your recent pilgrimage and. I think no better place to start than what prompted it, and how'd you go about kind of like getting there?
Well, the seed of walking... Can I first answer in a sneaky way your question? Should all Christians go on pilgrimage?
Well, yeah, for sure, please, yeah.
My answer is life is a pilgrimage already.
Yeah.
Justin probably would have said that because he's a very profound man. Life is a pilgrimage. But to remind ourselves of that, sometimes we need to go on a physical pilgrimage. Now, that doesn't have to be as exotic and dramatic as flying all the way to the other side of the world and walking the Camino, but the physicalness of a journey that has a sort of a definitive beginning and end is profoundly important for the spiritual life. Yeah, that we are a religion that has a destination. We are going somewhere, and there's a call in which there's a life that we're meant to be leading and living with a destination sort of in mind. And I think that having that framework shapes a lot of how we make decisions, good decisions in day-to-day life. So anyway, that's a bit of an answer.
I love that. Yeah.
But for me, it was a recognition that I was at a stage in my own spiritual life and my own understanding of vocation that I needed to come to terms again with who am I and who is God. That's the Catherine of Siena invitation. It's the two most profound questions a person can ask themselves and really address in this lifetime is who am I, Lord, and who are you? And I found I couldn't do that in my normal everyday humdrum, lovely. I loved my life. I loved the people in my life and the way I was serving the church, but I needed space. I needed time. So I had a lot of people support me, literally kind of going, we will give you space. If you need to raise money, here's ways we can do it. To enable me to have that time and space. So I've always been drawn to walk the Camino ever since I watched the movie The Way, Martin Sheen. I knew in my heart that's me one day. That's if there was a bucket list. I don't really have a bucket list, but that would be on it if I did. Like one day. I didn't think it'd be so soon. But a perfect window of time came up where there was no immediate demand for me in any particular responsibility, and a few other compounding things happened in my life where I need to reconnect with my call. Because here at St. Ben's, there's a certain way people relate to me. There's an expectation. I sort of live up to the expectation as much as I think I'm my own person. I'm following God's will. Just needing to get away from that, So that's.
And so when you came to that, like you felt, because from my understanding, then it's like you need that physical removal of yourself from kind of like the way that, like you said, people relate to you, maybe like some of the labels that have been attached to kind of your role at the parish and stuff. Was that a difficult decision then to then like say to yourself, I need to physically remove myself to kind of like get back to my relationship with God?
Yeah, it required sacrifice, and I think part of my own maturity is realizing, even just simple as no pain, no gain. Like it would require a cost, literally, financially, but also a detachment from, like, I'm one of those busybodies that I love to get involved with everything, but to kind of go, I'm going to hand over this ministry. I'm going to not be involved in this person's life or this group, even though there's so much I want to give. And also, there's also the cost of people not understanding. Like, why aren't you, you're a spiritual director, aren't you, can't you just connect God straight away, So there's that sort of working through that. And then later on, after the Camino, there was a few other sites I went to as well. So, and then I was like, should I tell people I'm also wanting to go to Fatima and, to Rome, to Assisi? Because like, isn't that like over and above the reason I'm going? I'm saying to people I'm going. But again, just working through that resistance and kind of going, people are on your side, and there is opportunities that can only be taken in certain seasons of your life, and this is one of them for me. So go all in. And people were absolutely on board with that. Gratefully.
So take us then. You get off the plane. Where are you at the beginning of this pilgrimage?
What do you mean, where am I? Am I like, isn't
Like
internally? Or?
No. Oh, so yeah, great distinction. See, spiritual director, they know the language is key here.
The interior pilgrimage.
No, like physically where you
okay.
are. Paint a picture for people, I guess, like geographically where you are.
Right.
And then if you want to tell us where you were internally as well at the beginning, I mean, that's great.
We might get lost. It's quite a map in there. All right. I landed in Paris after a very, very long flight. The first place I went to was Lisieux. Great love for Saint Therese of Lisieux. I thought it was very fitting that my time away began in Lisieux, where, insert testimony, I won't hear. The biggest grace I received there was Therese's dual grace of being both humble and bold at the same time, both of which are absolutely essential for the spiritual life, for the call of a disciple, is to be both humble and bold. I think if we're honest, if I can even look at my own self, I'm neither most days, I'm neither humble nor bold. But that was an invitation that as you walk the Camino, exercise and pray for both virtues. So after Lisieux, I went to Lourdes in France, great Marian apparition site, where that same grace, that dual grace of humility and boldness, was in some ways reinforced by Bernadette's model, Saint Bernadette, and also Mother Mary's apparition. From there, I took a bus to Saint Jean-Pierre-de-Port, which is on the south of France. That's the only French site on the Camino de Santiago, which is the one I walked on, the French way. Because after that, from then, I went over the Pyrenees Mountains the next day, and then the rest of the Camino, the next of the 35 days, was in Spain, north of Spain, until I arrived in Santiago de Compostela and beyond.
And I mean, the French pronunciation is on point. So I respect it.
If there's any French viewers,
So give people an overview of the actual Camino pilgrimage itself, like the distance. Like I know people. There's like the short one. There's the full. So
sure.
Give people a little bit of like the overview of maybe the version that you did and undertook for yourself.
Ooh, and I'll throw in a cool detail as well.
Yeah, please do.
So the Camino Francais from Saint Jean-Pierre-de-Port to Santiago de Compostela is around 800 kilometers. So an average person can get there between 30 and 35 days with maybe 2 or 3 rest days in between. So you're walking on average around 25 Ks a day. Some days are 33 Ks and some days are 21 Ks.
Sounds like the worst.
Look, there's so much. Your body, this is the other detail I wanted to mention, which is really cool. There are 3 distinct stages on the Camino de Santiago. On this one, the Camino Francais anyway. There's the body stage, which is the first third. There's the mind stage, which is the second third. And then there's the spirit stage, which is the last third. And it's so profound on so many levels. So the first stage is everyone's body's freaking out because we're just not used to walking that much. We're just not used to walking, period. We just sit all day. So everyone, that's when aches and pains and lower back pain and backpack eating adjusting and people throwing out half their belongings to send back home and blisters, it all comes in. And then most people whine and complain, but then we push past it because we're all in solidarity. We're like, we can do this. So, but then you also learn about diet and sleep and drinking enough water. All these things you don't think about. You don't think about your body. The second stage is the interesting one. It's called the mind stage because that's when the mountains and the valleys and the farms give way to this great desert, this great almost stretch where it's just flat, almost like a desert. It's called the Meseta, flat. This is the mind stage because there's nothing to distract you anymore. There's no more, the initial, I guess, euphoria of starting the Camino is dwindling. A lot of your pilgrims are either tired or have given up. And you've got no other big mountain or big sort of landmark thing to keep your mind engaged. So that's when you wrestle with the mind and you encounter in some ways, the inner demons within your mind. The third stage is once you learn to love and honor both the body and the mind, that's when the spirit opens up, the spirit side. And that's when a lot of the aha moments, the insights, the healings, the revelations, the clarity comes forward. But interestingly, why this is such a profound pilgrimage is you have to journey through both the body and the mind. I think in the West, we tend to focus just on the spirit. We're like, if I pray more, or I will. That's the most important thing. Prayer, neglecting the healthiness of the mind. Nourishing your mind with healthy thoughts, recognizing where the enemy's planted lies. We sort of just run with scripts in our head, not really valuing our imagination, our intellect. And definitely the body's very neglected in the spiritual life.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of, it's just the thing that we use to carry ourselves, into mass maybe, but it's not really talked about as a theology, as a spirituality.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that for the spirit to open up, both the mind and the body needs to be honored is a profound reason why the Camino Francés is so 1,000 years, kings, queens, martyrs, popes have walked this track.
Yeah.
You literally got millions of prayers saturating this track. And it's, yeah.
And did it feel like when you were walking it, could you feel that like rich tradition, history, and like all these prayers and all these? Could you feel that like while you were there?
Sometimes, a lot of it is quite what's the word? It's not like you're constantly on a spiritual high, as it were. You're always reminded you're part of something bigger. I think that itself is a healthy pilgrimage spirituality. You realize I'm entering something bigger than myself, which is such a relief when so much of our lives in normal everyday is just like, I'm in control. I got to make decisions. It's all on me, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you every so often you have these shrines. You have a cathedral. You have a little plaque saying this particular saint or this king walked this track, and you're like, oh, yeah. And there's this profound moment towards the end, I would say at the 80% mark, where you're on top of the last big mountain, and there's a big iron cross where literally millions of rocks have been dropped on that site, because there's a tradition on the Camino Francés where you start the pilgrimage carrying a little small rock in your backpack, symbolizing something you want to surrender or let go of. Yeah. And then at this site, the iron cross, people surrendered that rock to the Lord, and everyone did it. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian or not. Yeah. Everyone just saw this symbol and stopped and prayed and wept. You can't. Symbols are powerful, and like most of the people who walk the Camino were not Christian, and I was surprised about that actually, or at least not church.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the fact that I sat there after I dropped my rock off, had a whole profound experience there. Yeah. I sat and it was dawn, and I just watched. People watched, and everyone who came by just stopped. Even if they hadn't seen the previous person stop, they would just stop and pause. I just think it's powerful, like this moment on a mountain, kind of reaching up towards heaven, and this cross is like the bridge between heaven and earth, and we're lifting up all our prayers to the Lord, and the Lord's channeling his love and grace down through this cross. It's just something symbolically powerful, so those moments are like, this is holy.
And do you reckon in those moments people that maybe aren't Christian, or like you said are not churched, they can taste heaven for a little bit? Even for that moment they get a glimpse of what that is. You
can't not. You're human. If Christianity is what Christianity says it is, which it is, I believe.
So do I. So that's
that's right. I'm glad we're on that same page. The symbol will speak. The Christian narrative is the most profound, life-changing, dramatic love story in human history, which is also the seedbed of the Myth Pilgrim. It's trusting that every great myth and fairy tale in the world that is timeless because it must echo with the greatest story that was ever told, which is the Christian story. So how can you not? You're walking in the footprints of these great heroes of civilization, who all honored and bowed before this great king. There's something at least worth pausing and drawing you to. And also there are I believe in thin places. It's a Celtic sort of understanding of spirituality, where certain places like Assisi, where the veil between heaven and earth is quite thin, and this is certainly one of those.
No, I love it. That's if it sounds special, and I think for people that don't necessarily believe in the faith that we profess, like to have those thin places in those moments, I think is so powerful. For people that even unfamiliar with the Bible and all that kind of thing, but to just come into contact with the divine for even a moment, I think is something really, really special.